Okay, well, folks are still popping on, so but I'll get us started, and then Christine and Susan will start their talk in a minute. So, I want to say welcome, everyone. I'm Clarence Mabey, and I'm moderate this session. Um, and this session is part of the Ideal Speaker Series that's held by the Institute for Information Literacy at Purdue. And the IDEALS stands for Information and Democracy, Education Access and Society. And some of you may have attended. So the last two summers, we've held one-day symposiums called the IDEALS Symposium. But this year we decided to, instead of having a sort of one concentrated day, to have a speaker series across the year. So please be on the lookout from us for, uh, you know, sessions that hold. We believe the next one after this one will be in September. But today, I'm excited to have this presentation, which is going to focus on how graduate students and early career researchers use information when they conduct research. And of course, the idea of the session is that this information that we'll learn today can help us think about how to best support new researchers. Um, and so our speakers today, I'm really honored to introduce them, are Dr. Susan Gasson, whose research focuses on researcher development, research collaboration, and researcher employability. And she's recently completed a PhD, which was titled Early Career Researcher Pathways, a Narrative Inquiry. And Susan is a senior fellow at Advance, Advanced Higher Ed, Advance HE, which is a nonprofit organization that strives to improve higher education. And Dr. Christine Bruce, whose research focuses on information literacy, higher education learning and teaching, postgraduate education and supervision, and research collaboration. And Christine regularly gives keynote presentations and has authored and edited several books on the various topics that I just described. And Christine is a principal fellow at Advance HE and is a member of the International Federation of National Teaching Fellows. So Christine and Susan have actually recently edited a two-volume set on doctoral supervision for enabling student and early career researcher success. So they're going to talk a little bit about, they'll show you that in the presentation, talk a little bit more about it. But we and I was a little bit involved in this work, as they'll talk about too, but we've done some work around specific work on how sort of new researchers engage with information. And so that's what we're going to focus on today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Susan and Christine.
Thank you so much, Clarence, and greetings everybody from Australia. It's very early in the morning here. It's about 6 o'clock and it's quite cold. So I've got a jacket on. Christine's from North Queensland, so she's not so cold. And we're celebrating NAIDOC Week here, which is a celebration of Indigenous the Indigenous peoples, and it's the 50th anniversary. So we're celebrating future leaders. So the tradition here is that we recognise the lands on which we're standing and consider past, present and future Indigenous contributions. And so thank you for your patience as I celebrate those moments, and I'm sure you're all on wonderful lands as well. So it's great to be joining you here, and this slide is an introduction to our agenda for the session. So I'm sure all of you are deeply involved in early career research development. You work with researchers every day, trying to help them with their work. Christine and I have done a lot of work on collaborative research cultures, and we'll talk about a framework to support that. But the feature for today is the Faces of Informed Research. And the genesis of this was with Clarence when he visited us in James Cook University in North Queensland, and we began that work. So to consider those three spaces, we've identified 4 papers that we've written that have talked about experiences that we've had working with researchers and developing their skills. And each of those experiences led to a publication. And so we'll talk about those publications and specifically what they tell us about the role of librarians in supporting researcher development, and particularly early career research development. And we'll conclude the session with hopefully introducing you to a Padlet, which we hope to leave open for a week, where we would welcome you sharing your experiences of applying these phases, or perhaps applications that you are now inspired to attempt based on the discussions that we have today. So now I'm delighted to hand over to Christine, acknowledging that the picture of Clarence on this page was him in North Queensland with us on a trip to a magnetic island. So thanks, Christine, over to you.
Thank you very much, Susan, and it is a pleasure to be here. Greetings to everyone who's with us. It's my pleasure to introduce the phases of informed research. The idea of the phases of informed research is that they are a application of the 7 phases of information literacy, which you may be aware of, which morphed sometime later into the 7 phases of informed learning. The principle is that it's an approach to information literacy, which talks about how people use information to learn. And in this case, we're talking about a very specialized instance of learning, which is research, hence the 7 phases of informed research. Now, as we talk about these phases of informed research, we need to understand what they can actually do, and how they work. And it's very similar to what we understand about the 7 phases of information literacy, if you happen to be familiar with that. So as we looked at research work, we could see that people's different collaborations and their different research capacity led to different ways of using the phases. So the phases are not anything static. We also found that we should really talk about researchers being able to use the phases simultaneously. Nobody ever just uses one phase, although in certain circumstances, attention might be prioritized that way. And the phases can also be a catalyst for people to think about when they're engaged in research design, research plans, or grant applications. Now let's take a look at the 7 phases and how they have been adapted to the research context. I hope that for some of you this might be relatively familiar, because we won't be going through it in a lot of detail, but I'm sure the names of the 7 phases themselves will give you the idea. And of course, we're interested in the ways that information professionals work with and support new and more senior researchers as they use these phases in their research experiences. So the first is field awareness and communication, helping people keep up to date with using technology and other strategies so that they're aware. They're aware of what's going on in their research field, and they're communicating appropriately with organizations, other researchers, conferences around the place. The second phase is about information sources, and you can read the detail there, so I'm not going to read every one out. Information processes, which is adapting to information processes people may already be aware of to their personal and collaborative needs. Information organization, establishing connections, knowledge-based construction, engaging critically with information, knowledge creation, and research gifts. Now, these last three, knowledge-based construction, knowledge creation, and the idea of research gifts, making the wise use of research for the benefit of society, are three that are perhaps most special to the research context. And the research context, I would put to you, as Clarence already has, is something that begins even in undergraduate education, where students are engaged in research projects and goes all the way through to the most sophisticated research that is being done either within or without the university. What we would like you to do is to think about these faces as Susan explains how to move into a Slido.
So I'm hoping, yeah,
I'll hand over to you, Susan, to do this bit.
I'm hoping you can see a QR code there, and you can use your phone to pop into that Slido and to consider if there are any faces that you're seeing there that you'd like to say you're using, or that seem familiar to you, or that you've considered when working with researchers. And if everybody's in there doing their voting now, I'm just going to go out of the presentation briefly to try and, oh, there you go. We can see that some people are saying, oh, information sources is very popular. And well done, everybody. Information sources is definitely winning the race at this stage. I'll let it go on for a little minute longer. Isn't that interesting that information processing and the research gift are not getting a lot of traction, which is really what we thought might happen, that those different areas may be more or less relevant to researchers. So you've all conquered information sources, and some of those others are not so familiar. So when we talk about the applications as we progress through the presentation, we'll try to tell you a little bit more about some of those other ones and think about your role as a librarian in introducing them. So thanks for playing in the Slido with us. So on to application one, and I'm going to hand back to Christine to talk about our fabulous open access resource. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you very much, Susan. This is a now almost a 2-volume set of open source handbooks, if you like, to help supervisors of new researchers to support their students, and being led by James Cook University Library and Susan and her team. I was very privileged to be involved. As you can imagine, the idea of information literacy and the 7 phases of informed research were not ignored in what we were communicating to help supervisors support their students. There's a number of places in the book which would probably inspire your thinking about the various ways you could support the different phases of informed research where researchers are engaging with information. But there are 3 special places where this happens. And the first is in chapter 3, which is called Collaboration as a Supervisory Practice. And in this particular chapter, we encourage supervisors to think about how they use the 7 phases, encourage them to discuss with their higher degree research students and others how the particular phases might assist phases of their candidature. So you could imagine that if they're talking to students about supporting their bibliographic references, about doing literature reviews, they might be very much focused on the sources phases and the information organization phases. And as students are writing, they'd be bringing their attention towards critical thinking about what they're reading and what that might mean to them in the research context. There is a slightly different level of critical thinking involved in the research context than the ones what we might promote in the undergraduate level. And that's a natural progression for most people. And I'm sure as you work with researchers, you'll start to become familiar with that. The other places where the faces are really important are when it comes to publication, as students are starting to write journal articles and needing to understand the publication landscape. And we believe a lot of that is about sharing the wisdom of their research with others, and we capture it under the research gift. As they actually build their research and the outcomes of their research, they're using information to innovate, and that requires a lot of creativity, which is, if you dig into the literature and into these books, you'll find lots of discussion about how information is being used to support those ways. There are 2 chapters that are actually written by librarians that you would like to look at. The first of those is chapter 9, which frames the experience of information use around the research life cycle. If you can see closely, you will notice that different faces are represented in what the chapter encompasses. And I can see the second face, the third face, the fourth face, and in the latter parts of what the chapter is doing, 4, 5, 6, and 7, at 5, 6, and 7, we're really looking at the research gift phase. Number 3 is the fourth phase. Number 1 is the second phase. In chapter 10, which explores developing information literacy at a broader level, the phases are a little bit more embedded, but you will find them as you read that chapter as well. So just to summarize, there is quite a good volume of information in these books to support you with the idea of helping new researchers with their knowledge-based construction and knowledge creation. And it's a tool to help you work with supervisors in the same way as you would work with teachers in undergraduate classrooms. One of the things that we have found is that many supervisors don't automatically think, the library can help me, in the way they think, the library can help me, when they're working with their undergraduate students. But if you put a librarian in front of them, that aha moment really does turn on. So I hope that might be some encouragement to think about these directions in a range of ways.
Thank you, Christine. And now I'm just going to take a moment to talk about application 2, which is based on a book that I'm writing for Emerald Books that's coming out in November, based on my thesis. So the book itself is called Early Career Researcher Pathways, Tensions and Stories. And so Pathways was what really inspired me to conduct the research, experiencing early career researchers who were struggling to find jobs and were struggling to understand the breadth and range of roles that might be available to them in different sectors. And then as I received the stories from early career researchers, which informed my narrative inquiry, I came to identify a series of tensions that were informing the way that they were developing and growing. And I'd just like to talk about a couple of those tensions in the context of the faces. So in chapter 6, with the help of Christine and Laura, we looked at the tension between conducting collaborative research, which is so important for being productive and for building networks and for generating new ideas, and the importance of being able to have have your own work personally recognized, and to be able to generate a profile for yourself and say, I as a researcher have done these things, so please give me a grant, please give me a job, please give me a promotion, please recognize me as a peer. And early career researchers work to manage those tensions. And in the chapter, we discuss how the collaborative research framework and the faces of informed research can actually assist people to navigate those tensions. And then in chapter 4, we talk about the tension between open cultures and closed cultures. And I'm sure you have had discussions with researchers about the opportunities that are available for engaging in open access publications and the tensions that some of them face in trying to make decisions about where to publish to ensure that their work is highly cited and highly recognized. And coming to understand those differences is part of managing the research gift. And for those that are working in sensitive areas where perhaps the information needs to be kept confidential, or perhaps the information is highly sensitive and so has to be managed carefully, then information organization can come into play. And librarians can have a very key role in both those spaces in helping early career researchers to become familiar with what it means to engage in open and closed cultures and how they can manage their researcher identity development and their research process to make the best of those opportunities. And now I'm going to hand smoothly back to Christine to talk about another application of this work and what it means for you as librarians working with researchers. Thanks,
Thank
Christine.
you very much, Susan. I'd just like to take a quick moment to respond to one of the questions that's been coming up in the chat about the Confident Supervisors volumes. Confident Supervisors Volume 1 is already available and has been for about 18 months. We're actually also very, very proud that it won a global open access award for impact very soon after it was published. And so much so that people were wanting a volume 2. Volume 2 is about to be released and it should be available via the same link. Volume 1 is also potentially going to be available in a second edition. So some authors are revising their chapters. Whether it becomes a second edition or not depends on the extent of the changes. But those links should work. Librarians were wonderful in providing the codes for us to help you get through to the links easily. And I'm sure we'll be able to keep everyone updated about that through Clarence's Research Centre. And let's move on to look at the third application. And these are all applications, of course, where as a research team, we have been involved in applying the faces of informed research. And I am a librarian, some of you might know, and we work closely with librarians as we go through this process with researchers and publish. So it's a collaborative opportunity. This particular article called Creating Collaborative Capacity in Early Career Research Writers is about helping them write. It's about helping them come to the point of offering the gift of their research back to the world. And one of the things you might notice is that the whole research team is present here. Myself, Susan, and Clarence all were involved in this one. The actual the actual process of the article takes people through the collaborative research culture and its relationship to informed research in a little bit more detail than some of the other pieces that we have already shown you. So we'd like to highlight here the collaborative research culture framework and just explain it to you briefly. There are three key elements to the framework: the roots of collaboration, the fields of collaboration, and the fruits of collaboration. The roots are all about trust and respect in different communities. The fields are about different kinds of networking, from informal to formal, and what we call sanctioned, those which have some kind of legal framework around them. And then the fruits of collaboration, inspiration, innovation, and inclusion. When we have those things working together, research happens well. And in thinking about the 7 phases of informed research, we want to emphasize that in developing collaborative capacity, leadership needs to include the inspirations from informed research in what they do. So we've been systematically introducing informed research into the collaborative research culture for some time, to help encourage collaboration, knowledge sharing, and community engagement. And people have found that using the phases of informed research helps collaborative capacity along. And this is one of the key messages of this particular article. There is a number of cases in it. The cases describe the journey of a couple of hypothetical researchers, Olaf and Amelia, and show how they're actually using the phases to meet their various needs at critical moments. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a moment to read one of these stories, and as I read the stories, you may like to think about the 7 phases of informed research and how you see them coming out in the stories. Susan and I did a little exercise before we came to talk to you to identify where we actually saw the faces, and most of them are in there. So I'm going to take about 3 minutes to read through this and think of it as an informed research tale. Olaf and Amelia were high-performing coursework students. They both had a break before undertaking research study. When connecting with the library and the research office and career staff at orientations, they both identified reasons for maintaining contact to support their research and researcher development. Amelia was deeply grateful for help in avoiding predatory publishers. Olaf benefited from advice on resources for locating material for his literature review and methods chapter. In examining literature, both Olaf and Amelia recognized how their topics were explored from various theoretical perspectives within the field. Prompting discussions with advisors and other students, librarians, and other professionals led them to further hone their research questions, building on ideas that were encountered in the literature. Research staff opened doors to grant opportunities, offered advice on writing and resources. Knowing requirements and understanding how to navigate intellectual property and collaborative agreements and funding enhance their ability to extend knowledge through innovative endeavors by capitalizing on opportunities made possible. Olaf chose to participate in a mentoring program during candidature, and Amelia worked hard after graduation to get high exposure of her creative work through social media and other online discussion fora. Olaf was able to use information that he gathered online to locate a position that allowed him to use knowledge from his research to benefit his local community. Fostering her creative side, Amelia used online networks to connect with like-minded individuals and eventually located a position in which she designed and taught creative writing workshops for undergraduate students. As early career researchers, Olaf and Amelia kept in contact with their student research community, their supervisors, and those who had deepened their informed research experience. Having access to examples of writing for different audiences and feeling confident about discussing social and professional issues in online fora was a critical part of life beyond their research study. They continued to accept ideas and knowledge about how to join and participate in networks, accepting invitations to speak and share knowledge with new students. They came to see how their ability to access and use information continuously influenced their industry and community engagement and the potential social impact of their work. I hope you might have been able to see how they were engaging with the different faces as we ran through that particular tale.
Thank you so much. I can see everybody's been concentrating hard. I hope we're not overwhelming you at the end of a long day for you. I'm going to run through a last application, which involved us creating a network with some colleagues in Papua New Guinea, which is, they're all from a fairly rural and remote part of Papua New Guinea. And the opportunity to work with them came from an association between James Cook and their university and a visit to Papua New Guinea to talk to them. And when we saw them, and this is a picture of lovely Rachel, who leads a significant interest group for women in her university. And Rachel readily said, "Why don't you join our significant interest group? We'd love to have you and Christine on board as part of our network." And they saw that network as a way of empowering women, promoting equality and addressing disparities for their group. But the sort of information needs that the group particularly addressed was this opportunity to network and connect with other people and to invite diverse membership and invite and explore what members of that network had to offer to help the group to function effectively. And really what the network was trying to do was to find new ways of developing and realizing impact and finding new ways of accessing resources and services and learning how to apply those resources and services to promote their ability and well-being. And so it was in that space that Christine and I, when we became involved with the network, realized that we needed to go and talk to our librarians. As a less developed and poorer community, their library was primarily textbook-based. Many of the resources were from the last century. And so for researchers at that university, there was a real challenge in conducting research and in producing publications. And they were very keen to look at ways that we could give them access to a broader range of library resources. And our librarians were very quick to come into the process and to give us advice and explain what the limits of licensing agreements were in terms of us being able to share materials with the team, and the opportunities for us to co-publish with them to make some of those resources more easily available and realize some publishing outcomes to help them to raise their profile and give them a little bit more recognition for the work that they did. And the librarians were also superb in working directly with those communities to talk to them about open access resources and sources that were available to help them. And we talked a lot about sources of information beyond the traditional that would be relevant to the work that they were trying to do in the research that they were conducting, and thinking about how to frame and give an appropriate scope to their research foci to make sure that they had opportunities to conduct that research effectively, given the span of information resources that were available to them. So it was a very fun experience, and we continue to be in contact with the group, and they're conducting broad surveys looking at delivering information about how research is conducted in universities in Papua New Guinea as part of their ongoing work. So very exciting times. So I hope those examples have given you a sense of what role librarians can play and how they can use those different faces to inform the work that they do, and that you now feel ready to make your contribution. So we've created a Padlet, and as I said, that Padlet will be available for the coming week. And if you could just pop into that Padlet using the QR code that's available, and please shout out if it's not working. And within that Padlet, you will see that we've put a tab for each of the faces. And we'd love it if you could just try to provide an example of how you might be currently using the faces, or might think about using them into the future. And we're hoping that this might become a resource for all of us to help us continue to explore and use these faces in the work that we do. So you will find in the Padlet, you will be able to see the faces as well as see the boxes, so that you can have a bit of a reference point for putting your comments in. So I'll go a bit quiet here for a couple of moments, hoping that you're all in the Padlet and putting a comment in, and we'll come back together again in a couple of minutes and see what we've come up with. So thank you for your contribution and application.
Okay, so I think we want to see people starting to put things in, so we know everyone's got the idea of how to use it. I've gone in, but I can't see. Oh, I can see 2 loves for sources and a love for awareness and communication. So that's an indication that people are thinking they would like to use those. There's a love for research gifts and information organization. The comments bubble is where you could put in how you think you might use that face, or how you might already be using that face.
So if you click on that bubble, you can see on the screen here that I have a chance to say,
yeah. Ooh, I've got 3 knowledge-based construction, 3 research gifts, 3 information organization, 4 information sources. So it's very early stage in the election campaign. We are seeing a range of a broader range of votes across all the faces, rather than being primarily in one.
Has put a little comment in here, Christine. I don't know if you can see it.
Susan, while we're talking with people, someone was asking about the upcoming availability of the Early Career Pathways book.
Thank you. Yes, the there is, it's expected to be launched in November. We've got a tentative date of the 5th of November, which I'm excited about. We're just putting together the subject and author index at the moment, which is a new experience for me. I anticipate that I'll be keeping in contact with Clarence and let him know when the book is available for people to take advantage of. And as I've mentioned, each chapter of the book explores one of those 7 tensions and uses the stories of those early career researchers to think about how they navigate those tensions in order to progress their careers and the pathways they take. And there's a lovely little section at the end of the book, which I'm particularly delighted by, where I've gone back to each of those researchers, and we have a section called Where Are They Now? And I reveal what happened next to all of these lovely researchers that we talk about. So
Yes.
Hopefully that's an excitement.
Yes, I'm seeing that we're starting to get some interesting and useful commentary on what people might actually do to help researchers progress the 7 phases. So the one you had up there was on knowledge construction. It's really great that people are putting their ideas in, and I'm sure that if anyone's stuck for ideas, having a look at those would help as well. As well as going back to the resources that we have provided. There is a difference between reading an article and what other people have done, and then seeing what your peers and colleagues might be wanting to do in relation to the issue in libraries close to home and around you. It's great that technology allows us to provide different ways of approaching the new knowledge, and we're actually going through a knowledge creation experience here.
Yeah, I'm just noting in information processes that lots of questions about methodologies, and I'm delighted to say that in volume 2 of Confident Supervisors, we've got chapters in there with advice for supervisors on working with qualitative researchers, quantitative researchers, and a superb chapter on working with people from who are working across language communities and working across cultural communities. So a bit more coming out there, and we also are hoping to have some information on use of AI. There's a survey underway at the moment with supervisors on their use of AI in Australia, and we may be reporting on the outcomes of that. And a copyright expert talking about the impact of copyright and on open access work and on open access resources. So volume 2, I think will maybe quite a fun one, given some of the points that you've raised there. I noticed that there's lots of love for information sources, but there are nobody's put an example of using it there. I'm just going to go into field awareness to see the chat there, teaching up to, yeah.
Someone was asking about multidisciplinary research methods, and certainly I think that the doctoral Confident Supervisors book will have chapters that address engaging with multidisciplinary research.
Yeah. Certainly another hot topic, and that and transdisciplinary research are probably the 2 spaces that are particularly challenging. Somebody works with graduate nurses, supplementing advances in their field and reinforce their knowledge base. Yeah, it's getting into those different disciplines to give them the depth as well as the breadth. So you've got to be disciplinary before you become multidisciplinary.
Data analysis.
Yeah, nice. And then we've got a knowledge creation one here. Undergraduate research. In knowledge creation. Interesting.
Mm.
And we've got an information sources one. Well done, Wise Raven.
I think as people start thinking about it more, I'm hoping that in becoming familiar with the 7 phases of informed research, which are an adaptation of the 7 phases of information literacy, you can actually see that there are a host of things that the library and librarians do that actually fit. That without that framework in mind, you might not automatically think about those things as part of the information literacy or informed research project. And of course, with that framework, you can see that it all comes together and is part of the information literacy informed research frame.
Terrific. Well, thank you everybody for all of those lovely comments. And as we said, we'll leave that Padlet open for another week or so. And we really hope you find that a useful space to go to share as you go through a week at work and maybe have a moment to reflect on these faces and see how they are impacting your daily work. But I'm going to close that Padlet now and hopefully go seamlessly back to the PowerPoint presentation, and just at that reminder again of all of our lovely different faces, and then coming to a conclusion and to a moment when we're very happy to take some questions and dig into the chat again in case there's anything there that we've missed out on. So if it's all right, I might stop sharing that conclusion slide and just have a look at the chat and see if there's something there that we need to address before we close up in 10 minutes. So,
Susan, in lieu of the Pathways book being immediately available, may it be useful to share your thesis, the link to your thesis? It's not the same content, but it's got a lot of the stories
in there. Yes, I will pop a link in for the thesis, and probably the difference between the book and the thesis is obviously the thesis had to include a section explaining about my narrative methodology. So if anybody is doing narrative inquiry and needing to get an example, that certainly is an example.
Oh, your thesis has been found.
Oh,
thank you, Samantha,
well done, librarians. I knew you'd be good at this. So fast. Yes, fantastic.
I want to go into the chat.
Yes, I'm just going there too. Thank you.
So a few people are commenting about, of course, being familiar with the framework, the framework for information literacy from ACRL, right? And they're sort of not less familiar with faces of informed research, of course, but I guess I would throw in for my 2 cents that I think there's a lot of there's overlapping ideas. I think the faces, in a way, sort of give us another way to think about, right? Sort of how researchers go about using information. So for me, it's just it's an apples and oranges, but it's interesting to sort of look at it and think about what you could do with it. That might.
Could I make an additional comment on that, Clarence, because it was attracting my attention as well. The way I see it, the ACRL framework is a really great international standard for information literacy. It's something that we all look to as a lighthouse and a beacon. Now, while it is a framework, we have lots of different models of information literacy that have been created. And things like the Big Six you'll be familiar with, and the 7 Faces of Information Literacy is another model. And the different models have been created from different theoretical perspectives, if I might say so, and would be useful in different contexts. So the Big Six model, which is used across science and in a lot of undergraduate education, is a lovely competency-based model, and it also provides a process. It's a process model. The 7 Faces model, whether we're thinking 7 Faces of Information Literacy or 7 Faces of Informed Research, is a model that looks at the different ways in which people actually use information as they engage with learning or research. So it's looking at how they approach the same phenomena from different perspectives. Just, lifting, it's a bit theoretical, but imagine a diamond that has different facets. That's what the faces are all about. So very correctly, someone has pointed out that phases is a different word again. So when we're talking about the faces of information literacy or informed research, we're talking about different facets of the same phenomenon. And all of these different models, whichever one you happen to be engaged with, can be used in collaboration with the ACRL framework. They should help you to activate the framework.
Yeah, they're complementary. Yeah. A couple of people are looking at your book as on information literacy as well, Christine.
Yes.
They found it.
Yes. And the other one, which is probably more up to date, is informed learning. Informed learning is about the application of the 7 Faces in mostly undergraduate contexts. And it was written so that librarians could put it into the hands of academics and work with them. Informed learning was a college, an ACRL publication.
I've just seen April asking about a bibliography. We do have references at the end of the PowerPoint, and I will add Christine's 2 books to that, and do a refresh for Clarence to share around. So that might be useful, but I'm sure you've all found them already. Such good work. So
I have them here, and of course, once you start going down that particular path, if you do start going down that particular path, you'll find that there are lots of articles applying and other research applying the ideas in different contexts. So another book that we've all been involved in is the Information Experience book. And the Information Experience book has a lot of chapters on the application of information literacy thinking to different contexts.
So,
well, we're coming to the end, and we have a couple of minutes left. And so, if anyone has questions or comments or thoughts, maybe pop them in the chat, as some people already are, and we'll see if we have a last question or 2 for Christine and Susan.
Yeah,
I'm really intrigued that AI hasn't seen that statement. Someone create a bibliography and instantly done it for us. Sometimes it does things we don't want it to do, but when we do want it to do, it does.
Yes, I was looking at the transcription that's been coming up, and it's very interesting what it does. Phoebe, you've got your hand up. Can we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question for you both. So I'm a grad student right now, and I'm just curious, as we're kind of emerging researchers and we're learning these faces, what do you think are the most important for us to focus early on, and the best ways for us to learn them as newbies researchers?
I'll have a go first if you like, Susan. I would, if I was working with grad students, I would always introduce them to all the faces, because they are all different facets of the same phenomenon. And then when you've got the 7 different facets in your head, you'll be more aware when you're engaged in any research activity, which subset of those you are more likely to be activating, and then you can concentrate on those. In the early stages of research, you're probably unlikely to be heavily emphasizing the innovation and the gift, the 6th and the 7th face, but you do still want to be aware of them, because that's your direction. That's where you're going as a researcher. Yes, and I think as people move through, they start to understand the 6th and 7th phases more, and of course they can't lose sight of the early ones, because they're a platform. I'm very conscious that these are not about different phases of research. All of these things are always are often happening simultaneously. In Australia, while students are doing their literature reviews, they're actually thinking often about writing a research article on their literature review at the same time. So they're engaging all of those phases as they work on their literature review. They're not just engaging the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd phase.
So for my 2 cents worth, in those early stages of candidature, I think it's important to not lose track of the experience and the knowledge that you're bringing to this process, and to think about the strengths you have, and the spaces that you want to consolidate on, that will support you in meeting your the career aspirations or the work-related aspirations or the professional aspirations that you might have, that are goals related to your engaging in this research process. And so thinking about those and maybe discussing those with your supervisor, and making sure that you're incorporating those into your research experience and your topic, or your range of methodologies that you're applying, or the partners that you're bringing into your work, can be quite useful, and that may stimulate conversations. What I've noticed, a very sad story that I heard very recently, a very novel researcher who's very excited. She's trying to do her first publication, and her supervisor said, well, just write something and then we'll think about where you might publish it. And I think a conversation with a librarian at that point might have been really, really handy, to help her think about, well, if I'm going to publish in that journal, this is what they expect, and this is how long they take to review, and this is the sort of profile I might get out of it, just to inform that process. So thinking about where you are now, where you want to go, and what you bring into that experience, I think might help you to have some conversation about particular faces that perhaps your supervisor hasn't had a chance to share with you, and may have more to contribute to help you in your journey and in framing that journey. So early on, lots of opportunities to think about where you're going. In the middle, you'll be busy doing all of the information processing things, possibly a little bit more, but careful, as Christine said, that you don't think of it as phases too much, because things will pop up unexpectedly and be really important to what you're doing. But I hope that gives you another way of thinking about it. And very good luck to you, Phoebe. What an exciting journey you're on. It's a wonderful thing.
Thank
It's
you
a
so much.
gorgeous phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're out of time, so let's go ahead and please give a big hand and thank Susan and Christine for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody. Lovely to meet you.
Really amazing. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for joining us. And I should have said at the beginning that the timing of this event for all the various people was so that we could do it at a time that Susan and Christine was very early for them, but not, but they were willing to get up early and do it for us so that people here in America and other places could join at a time that kind of worked out. So thank you for that too. I did want to say in closing that we will do more of these ideals speaker series. We think the next one will be in September, so please be on the lookout in listservs for the next event that we're planning to host. And again, thank you so much. Thank you, Susan, Christine, and thank you everyone for joining us today.